Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning with me, Peter Giblett, and him, Dave Wheeler. Dave Wheeler, are you there?
Hi, Peter. How's it going?
It's
Well,
going, it's going great.
that's good.
You went to Laurie's session last night, did you?
Yes, it was very good. I think
Hey,
Lori is made for that kind of thing. I even put that on one of the posts. I said, "Good job, Lori. You're made for this," and she is. Um, she's as you and I know, she was a Toastmaster years ago, and she could
yeah,
hardly say her own name in public. And now she's holding these meetings, bringing to the fore um, a good forum for people to speak their minds. And she controlled it very well because, of course, people getting very emotional want to say a lot of things all at once, and she was able to control the meeting and to be able to deal with answer questions that she could deal with. And I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, Lori is the best. Yeah, that's Metaphysical Mike talking there. Him and I, there was some high density residential sections starting up there at the Lions. It was a nice big residential trailer. Anyway, Metaphysical Mike was there, and Paul Calamere. There were some very interesting things. And one of the things of note that sort of stood out for me is that something that I should be worried about, but I didn't see it coming, and it was this Niagara Falls University. And Niagara Falls University is coming out, and there was one person there that claimed that the university was basically just all online stuff. Most of it was online stuff, and it was a clever way of getting students into Canada. As we know that system is being abused like crazy, and the universities are like to look the other way because they're getting a lot of tuition fees and so on.
yeah, this is the allegation. This is the allegation that every corner store or next to City Hall University can bring in a whole mass of foreign students because it brings lots of bucket loads of money.
Yes, and he said I forget the gentleman's name, but he Paul Calamere got some info that he had. He had a few copies of his info. Paul got some, and I hope I can get some from Paul then. But really, it was about these what he's called a diploma mill, and I think he says at Conestoga College, 500 of the students at Conestoga College became instant citizens or something like that. It was I wish I remembered the details, but I thought that was probably the most interesting thing. And as we know in Canada, there's a lot of issues with immigrants and people jumping the line in the queue, and one of the ways they do that is coming in as a student.
Well, we talked about that challenge of the graduate who was not getting her permanent residency a couple of weeks back, didn't we?
Yes, and so there's all kinds of abuses, and of course the universities themselves like to look the other way. And when the topic was brought up by, and I'm sure if it was Laurie or another council person, Laurie was talking about it when they looked for a sort of affirmation from City Hall about some new courses they're offering. It's very unusual. Why would the university ask for the City Hall to affirm in a letter of the particular courses, a couple new courses they're going to put on? Laurie was against this because this has nothing to do with the city at all. But the mayor decided, his name is Mike, and he said Conestoga Scoot were protesting, I think. But there was some means by which they were all offshore students too. Well, I don't have nothing against the protest, but I think there was something more to it than that. And anyways, it was thanks for that, Laurie, and thanks also, Mike, for help me remember this stuff. I thought that was very interesting, and Lori was against the core. Actually, questioned why are we giving a letter, or a letter that this university can now use that will confirm this particular courses. Now, I'm sure the mayor would not be able to check to see if these courses were being taught correctly or if they're even being taught. So I don't understand why Paul took his information. Yeah, I was gonna. He only had a couple of copies of his stuff. Mike did, and so it sounded very, very interesting, that part of it. I think that's the thing that stood out to me the most. I really don't want our city to become a place where it's a diploma mill. It rips everybody off. It rips off the student. It rips off the people who live here.
Yeah, it downgrades the value of anybody who's gone to said learning institution, if that ever happens.
Yes, and why? And I was very curious. And when Lori said that she asked the mayor about the letter, I think it was a letter. Why would they give a letter to, or the university asked for a letter from the city noting that they're adding these courses? And as senseless as that sounds, the mayor thought, well, anything to encourage the university, the success of the university. So I thought that was rather not a really smart move that way. You don't do that. You might as well come to Talking Niagara and get a letter from Talking Niagara that says that you're teaching new courses. It doesn't make any difference.
I'm very curious about the courses, and you see, here's the question, and I'm not, how many of the courses that are being taught have they imported lecturers from Toronto or further afield to teach when they have local people available who can do that teaching?
Well, the problem that Mike had pointed out was there's a private university.
Yeah. And
it and most of the courses, he says, are online, so you can see what's happening. The student can get one of the reasons how students get into Canada is and stay here. Like the plan is basically, if you bring a student into Canada and they study here and they do very well, those are the ones you want to keep. Right. And the other ones you want to send back home. But what happens is they get into the country on a student visa, and that's it. They don't go away. They don't go back. And the private universities in this particular case can give the student a shelter, making it look like they've gone to university in Canada, which would open up a door for them to get into Canada. And that's why I understand it. It stinks. I would also say that I was surprised that Lori wasn't overprotective of herself when the idea of the Roxham Road migrants came into that topic came up. She didn't say that, oh, well, you gotta share everything. She wasn't guarded, overly guarded like just about everybody else is, and lead off with, well, we have a wonderful, diverse, and all this other stuff. She just said, look, Project Share is giving away things that should belong to our own people, not to the Roxham Road refugees. That should come from a different source. She didn't say they shouldn't have them. It should come from a different source, right? And how our facilities are being taxed, our education, our things like Salvation. I know, because Salvation Army has to give them lots of things and so on and so forth. They put a great strain on our on our charities in and around
Yeah.
the area and in our schools and all that. And yet the government just dumped them here, and they didn't. And she said they didn't tell anyone. As you know, we broke the story here, right here on Talking Niagara. It was we were talking about it before it went to the newspapers. As a matter of fact, I tipped off I brought it to the attention to a reporter, and he put out the article, and a little later on another review. The article went out in Niagara this week, and about a week or so later,
Were there any press there yesterday?
What?
Did press come yesterday?
I didn't see any. I wasn't looking for them though.
Yeah, fair enough.
Now there was another big meeting, one that would probably be a little more sexy for a journalist, and that was the Thundering Waters thing that was happening at around 4:30.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I couldn't make either of them, unfortunately. Tied up in other ways.
I was very heartened by the amount of people that came out. It wasn't a completely full meeting, but it was mostly full, and so they had a fair amount of people come and listen to. Mike Cushman says Father Hennepin has never seen such an increase in students on taxpayers' dimes. Yes, and as a Kiwanian, we've given money for food and school supplies to the schools around here that have been hit the worst.
So Mike went to the Thundering Waters meeting first.
Yes, no, he went to it Fister. That's how he spelt it. So yeah, we should actually get Mike on here to tell us a few things, maybe on Monday or something like that, if he can remember the meeting. But this is so that was part of it. The condition of roads were coming up with fireworks, pyrotechnics was an issue with one couple there.
Well, actually, that's an interesting.
It was not the pyrotechnics of downtown, although that.
That actually is an interesting thing to me, because the other night, and I know it wasn't the normal fireworks, because from my house I can't actually physically hear the fireworks going off from the official fireworks. But the other night there was actually a loud firework display somewhere within sound distance of myself. I could hear it. Didn't manage to get up and see it, but my God, it was some big display.
Yes, and if we found out during the meeting that there's almost nothing that anyone can do.
Yeah,
the police won't do anything about it. If you do try to do something through the bylaw, it takes forever to do it.
Yeah. Well, the bylaw people are not on hand to catch them.
Yeah, and it's a clumsy, cumbersome process.
Yeah.
To do this. So that came up, and I didn't even realize that. I didn't realize that I could just get some fireworks to start blasting them off here, and almost nobody can do anything about it.
Yeah. I would say, well, people know that I'm in the Bridge and Victoria area, and it was in that general area that the fireworks were let off.
Well, I tell you that I lived downtown for 26 years on Ontario Avenue there, and there was always somebody with fireworks, like fireworks going off. Became so common that I just ignored it most of the time. And if I left and came back, and then I would notice them again, I think, who's this? Now, a lot of times people threw them down in the gorge and stuff, so it'd make a big boom down there. But at other times, just people, like, I would hear them go off all the time. And one day I was walking down the street, and a guy was zooming around in his car, throwing fireworks out of his car window, making a blast here and there. So I think there's a regular source of pyromaniacs everywhere you go. People like fireworks and like blowing them off for whatever particular reason. And I think some people just do it all the time. That was
Yeah.
my experience when I was downtown. I mean, it was so often fireworks going off somewhere, either in the gorge or
Yeah.
in the neighborhood somewhere. Usually a firecracker though, but not Roman candles or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on to some of the news we're covering. Oh, got this the wrong way around. Got this the wrong way around. Sorry. Sorry about this. Let's get it. Let's do it right. Some students are on the reflecting on the big challenge that they're facing in pursuing higher education. They're calling it imposter syndrome, and there's a feeling, and I'm sure you've been through it. I'll admit to have been through it. When you go to a place and you feel inadequate, you've going through education, maybe going through your first job, and you've got this feeling of total and utter inadequacy. But one of the things that's being pointed out, this was an article that's talking about Black and ethnic minorities students around who are saying that they feel that they've been made to feel inadequate in their studies.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you they've been made to feel that way, but it doesn't really say that it's anybody's fault, does it? Really?
Well, it is
a thing that
they're
happens.
saying the biggest thing I've had to battle is in fighting imposter syndrome. Hey, I remember as a young kid, I've been there, I was there, I did that. I felt inadequate all the time. I remember my first job. The CEO of that company, on the second day, he called me into his office. I'm sitting there going, I'm going to get fired.
You got what?
He called me into his office to have a meeting. I'm thinking, I'm going to get fired.
Oh,
right. Yeah. Of course, I wasn't going to get fired. All that he did is he gave me, he talked to me so that he could get to know who I am. And it's what he did with all, all new starters. Normally on the first day, but he wasn't there on the first day I started. So it was a second day thing.
Well, I feel that according to this article, it seems to be mostly women, mostly young women of color.
Women, women, and they're making it out as women of color, but I think there's a bigger thing here, and I get it. That, for example, they're saying, especially in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, every female student, regardless of ethnicity, South Asian, white, Black, Chinese, all have imposter syndrome. I don't necessarily agree. Having worked in that industry all my life, those industries all my life, I have to say there are some brilliant women out there, always have been. But but I guess that's kind of the push in those areas generally is from men, I guess.
I'm not so sure, but I get the idea that it's more that it does talk about men having this imposter syndrome. And let's clear up, imposter syndrome is that thing where you feel like you don't really belong here and you're not good enough for what is happening. And this seems to be happening a lot in Canadian universities. But I think a lot of this would happen anyway, just because the people are young. And I don't really think, I think the racialized part of it is just an overdub. I think because young people kind of feel like they're out of place anyway. And when they're faced with coming into a university, they think, I'm not worthy. A lot of the people would feel that way, particularly under the auspices of great schools of learning. And then you've got other people walking around with confidence because they've been there for a while, and you definitely would feel a little out of place. Well, how much of this has to do with being racialized, though? Does it? Would they have felt any better if they're going to a university with people who are all people of color? And these universities are full of people of color. So how is it they are feeling the imposter syndrome? because of the racialization. I have a feeling that any new immigrants or families of new immigrants will feel the same way. I feel like the Italian, the Irish, the Polish, all those people when they were new immigrants to the country probably felt the same imposter syndrome.
I get it, and the ethnic minorities are actually, possibly feel the worst of that because of the fact that they are not, their parents were not born in this country, or they were not born in this country, and I understand where that comes from, but again, I think that you've kind of just got to get into your course. You've just got to get on with life, do what you can to the best of your ability, and go from there.
And here she said, one of the students says, imposter syndrome includes feelings of self-doubt or whether you are worthy of being belonging due to a lack of representation and other factors.
Yep.
But then she counters herself by saying, Danielle said, well, universities now have more women students than men, and women and gender diverse students still more often feel imposter syndrome. So what she's saying basically is you've got a lot more women, you've got more women than men. So why do women feel that they are imposters based on the fact that they're female? That doesn't really make sense. It's kind of like in their head, she's kind of saying here. And there's more racial diversified people. Of course, we just talked about all the foreign students that were in our universities. So we have a huge representation of people from every race in our universities. All you have to do is go to a university and see that. And yet these people are still getting imposter syndrome when they're surrounded with people from all over, different races,
different ethnicities. Yeah, absolutely. Different races, different ethnicities. And it's part of university life. And it's part of real life out in the real world. And in fact, actually, you're no longer kind of got the safety of school, if you like. Because again, it has to be said that, hey, school is relatively safe compared to every other option that exists out there.
Is this a kind of a social contagion, like anorexia, bulimia, which doesn't really have any real concrete reason for it to happen? Mike Cushman says, I am sorry, but kids today consider what we call nervous anxiety. There's a huge problem here. Yeah, the overprotection of our kids is a big deal.
Yeah. Right. And okay, so there are coddled children out on their own, and they have to stand on their own feet. They are not a minority. The whole point is, yes, exactly that. And that's what I said when I was young, and I'm sure you had the same when you were in your first job, or maybe when you were going to some further education. You probably had this feeling at a point where you thought, I don't fit here. I'm not sure that's me.
Well, usually when you go to a new job, you find that that everyone else at the job knows everyone else, and they all joke around, and they hang out together, and they have ways in which they speak to one another, and you really do feel like an outlier. It takes you a while to blend in, get in. You're
not in part of the whisper, are you? You don't know the you don't know the clique, you don't know the whisper. You don't know what that term means. That's being slung around it by everybody, and the point being is that it takes a while to break into the circle.
Yeah, it does, and especially if you're on a job where I've been on jobs where construction jobs where just about everybody's Italian. I mean, this goes way back into the 70s, right? Everybody was Italian, right? I remember one job I was welcomed with open arms by the bulldoze operator because he was the only other guy that has English as his first language.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And
I'd just like to mention that Jonathan Haidt, who's a Canadian by birth, he lives in the States. He's become famous, very much so, in like what he has predicted over 10 years ago. As far as I know, this guy has been at least over 10 years ago. He's been saying that our children are coddled, and that they are incapable of facing the world because they are super protected, and they haven't done any challenges. And he says he can't tell jokes or anything in university now because someone will take offense for some reason. It's almost like a contest who can take who can find offense.
Well, and actually, have to say that kind of I can remember back. I went to a few university gigs for bands, and oh my god, I don't think today's kids would fare very well for some of those things coming off the stage there. Oh my god, they would be cracking jokes about somebody in the back wearing an outlandishly pink shirt or something,
Well, nowadays, if Dick Gregory was to be recreated today, the black comic of yesteryear, and went out and started telling his jokes about the black community and stuff that he does and the interactions between blacks and whites, he wouldn't have been able to do any comedy at all. Same as Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle and other comics don't even bother going to universities anymore.
Yeah,
many of the rock musicians, particularly the more famous ones, won't go to universities anymore because there is always somebody there that is going to try to tell them they're a Nazi or a Maoist or something, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
But aside from that, though, what Jonathan Haidt says is true. Would this imposter syndrome be a part of that? That these we have allowed our children to become weak in facing off the world. So when they're actually faced with real world situations, they can't handle them. I remember if I said anything like this to my father or my mother when I was a kid, they would think I was mad. Get out there, face up to the world.
Just do it, Dave.
Yeah. What are you talking about? You're not any worse than anyone else. Just go out there, or better than anyone else. Just get out there. Find
and at the end of the day, there's always a risk you don't fit in, right? But the chances are, but unless you actually try, you'll never fit in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got a question, a kind of an aside right now. I have a profound question. I wonder if anyone out there could help me out with this. We just about everybody knows the speed of light, right? Einstein's kind of helped us figure that out. E equals mc squared. Well, I have a profound question. What is the speed of dark?
It's all the same, Dave. It's all the same. It's relative.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, and talking about the speed of dark, a pervasive sense of fear is settled in at the highest levels of the Democratic Party over Biden's re-election prospects. And this is basically based upon the fact that he's currently trailing Trump significantly in the polls. And it seems to be exactly the battle. I'm guessing that they're concerned that the battle for the White House is lost.
The first thing I'd like to say, and I've said it before, and probably everybody else has said it too, out of a country of 330 or 340 million people, the two most likely persons to be president are Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Out of 330 million people, those two nitwits are at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Who wants to vote for any one of those guys? Joe Biden may have got a little bit of a break because now Trump, as of yesterday, is a convicted felon.
Yeah, he might have gotten a bit of a break, but then again, somebody I've seen comments out there that Trump's coffers are now are being filled up with people who don't care about that, who just said, "Yep, good, here's some more money."
Yeah, Trump's coffers are being filled at a faster rate than Biden's are. Now, at first, Biden got a lot of money because it seemed to be evident that he was going to win. But Ukraine and especially Gaza have come on hard against him on this. It has dropped his popularity incredibly. His actions and his sort of weak response to Israel when they're bombing the crap out of people like we just saw in Rafah, when they said the red line is that we don't go into Rafah, the Israelis don't go into Rafah and hold a military campaign and operation in Rafah, and they did. And they said, well, it's not a real military campaign. So that was supposed to be the red line, right? And the response was, well, it wasn't a real military campaign because the tanks are around the outside of Rafah, but you're bombing these people. Oh, well, the mistakes are made, so that's not a red line. And what about the tanks in the middle of the city? Oh, there's just a few of them, so that's not a military operation. So they're getting every excuse possible.
Yeah, every excuse, and a few of them. When is a few not a few but many? But too many. And could be argued that even one tank is too many, right? Just to throw that in there.
Yeah, I remember the journalist says, well, you're saying that the tanks are all on the outside. Well, we have journalists right in the city who have spotted a couple of tanks right in the middle of the city. And the response was, a couple of tanks is not a military operation.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Well, obviously, the journalist saw a couple of tanks in the middle of the city. Obviously, there's others in there. He just happened to see those ones and reported back. And the comment. So there's complete impunity for Israel right now doing this, and this is hurting Biden enormously. This is putting strange bedfellows together, as I said before, when Kentucky Congressman Messi has beaten AIPAC in their call for his when AIPAC campaigned against him because he did not want American money going for weapons to Israel. Now he's very much to the right, politically speaking, but he's being put in the same. Him and progressives are becoming allies in this particular reason, maybe for different reasons, but they are him and Democratic progressives are together on this because neither one of them want those weapons there. And
basically Thomas Massey is painting himself as a true conservative, or being painted as a true conservative Republican, but yet he opposes military intervention and military aid packages, and he's not impacted by AIPAC. Basically, on matters of war.
He beat AIPAC. That's the huge story there.
Yeah,
we talked about this yesterday. He actually beat AIPAC, which is unbelievable. I think it's unheard of. They threw $300,000 into the coffers of his and put a slur campaign out on him, and he beat it. And the reason how he beat it was he put it in the attention. He's saying, look what these people are doing to me. Look how they're trying to work against me. And he got 79% of the vote. So it blew up in AIPAC's face. But AIPACs are very smart, so they'll find a different way of approaching the next candidate.
Well, you're talking about
aside from that, and Joe Biden himself takes a huge amount of money from AIPAC and has done for a very long time. So So I think that is a big problem with Biden. However, I think it did get a bit of a balance when Trump became a convicted felon, though. It may have stopped new voters going over to Biden.
Well, is Trump going to go to prison?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Probably just a big fine. But whatever happens to him, he becomes more and more of a martyr to his followers every time something like this happens, because everybody believes it's the deep state doing their thing to keep Trump out of politics. So he's going to get stronger and stronger in a sense. The problem, I think, here is that you have two candidates that nobody wants, nobody right-minded wants, and I think, and Biden and Trump has a solid following of disciples. Like, I mean, he'll get a bunch of the vote just for being Trump. I think that's the thing that's going to hurt Biden, basically, and that's why the Democrats are so. The whole article was about the Democrats being completely anxiety-stricken because of this. You've got a very old party leader, Biden. He gets his stories all mixed up. He talks about his uncle being eaten by cannibals, and there's no evidence that ever happened. The plane that his uncle was in during the Second War was ditched in the ocean. That's what happens. So he can't get his stories right about anything. He trips over his own words. He gets confused when he's talking in front of the podium, and then he gets involved in the in Gaza, and everybody knows he could have stopped the Ukraine war.
Yeah,
these are the things that are going to go against him. And Mike Cushman, our listener, says all the loonies running for president is a reflection of the crazy state the United States are. The hills have eyes. The corruption is overwhelming, where judges openly accepting gifts from billionaires. The U.S. is failing. Yeah, and I also point out at this time, what is it with Nikki Haley? If you want to see a disease, the American disease coming out, Nikki Haley was in Israel signing artillery shells, saying, finish it with artillery shells. She was signing them. That's sick. Those artillery shells are messengers of death. You have to use them, maybe, right? But to sign them and to kind of celebrate the fact that they're there and put your own signature on them, that's sickening. That is sick. You know, if that artillery shell is shot, it's going to kill somebody, right? If those ones that she was signing, is she going to be happy if it wipes out a village? Is she going to be happy even if it kills other soldiers?
Yeah.
That's sick.
Well, also then the other question here is actually Doug Ford, when he was asked by a reporter about how government is defending Jewish communities amid reported rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes, Ford implied that immigrants were behind the shooting.
So we're going off to a different article. Yeah. So the Democrats, let's just wrap up the other one. The Democrats are extremely anxious because Joe Biden hasn't really coming up too well. Yeah. And a number of factors, even though he's been considered the better of two evils, he's losing ground on that. And the Dems are freaking out about it. Now we move off to the
reason I thought this was important is because it has similar kind of things here in Ontario, right? So there was a bunch of reporters with, I believe, Justin Trudeau at this event, and Doug Ford was flanked by Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow, and he was suggesting that immigrants might be responsible for the shooting at a Jewish girls' elementary school in North York. despite the police saying that they have very little information. Right?
Yeah, this
How
is
can we know it's?
so now
How
we
can
go
we know
back
it's
to north
immigrants?
of the border. So
Yeah.
now we leave the Democrats and go north of the border. And as you said, that Trudeau and Chow are flanking Ford at the lectern, and Ford, surprisingly, it surprised the hell out of me. He is blaming immigrants for the shootings. Do you think that he is being told sort of on the QT by the cops who they think it likely is, because the cops aren't going to say anything? Do you think something like that happened?
I'm actually wondering whether this is just bad speculation. You know how speculation, when these things happen, speculation runs rampant. And generally speaking, I think it's better not to say anything until the police do.
Well, that's what surprised me here. He so easily said this. Now, this is something you would be extremely guarded about saying,
I would think so.
and yet it just blurted out of his mouth,
Yeah.
and he hasn't really retracted it either. What he is saying, some lunatics goes around shooting up schools. That
I got no problem with that
is
statement.
unacceptable, and obviously he has some reason to
Yeah.
believe that these are immigrants, and he pretty much is saying what a lot of people are saying in the past: is leave your differences where you came from. Basically, whatever your hate is, where you came from, don't bring it here. So I don't know who he's implying the shooting up the Jewish school. I have a feeling that it's just your common everyday school.
Yeah. And you see, here's the thing. What lunatic goes around shooting up schools? I 100% agree with that, with that thought. It's just unacceptable. These guys need to be caught. They need to be punished. All of that 100% agree with, right? Thank you, Doug. We agree with you on that. They need to be thrown in jail. A zero tolerance for this anywhere in Ontario. What makes you think it, though? It is immigrants.
Yeah, that has to be clear. And I have a feeling, because he's never said anything quite like this before. He's always been a diversity guy. He's always touted the diversity of Ontario as a great thing, and he's saying it here again too. He says it doesn't matter what race, what creed, what religion you are from. I would say an exact same thing if it was another community as well. Enough of is enough. You are bringing problems from everywhere else in the world, bringing it to Ontario and going after other Canadians. Well, we know this because of the Kalistani thing too, where the Sikh was killed out in BC,
yeah,
and they were killed by other Sikhs or other people from India, and we find that we have differences between people, like tribal differences. We know we have Croatian and Yugoslavian, Croatian and Serbian hatred. We have Ukrainian Russian hatred. We have Jew-Arab hatred. We have all these other things and we have hatred among different African immigrants, depending on where they're from. So yeah, he's right about that, and we've talked about that we have imported a lot of we know all about our own diversity problems and about our own bigotry, but we're importing a lot of it. But I think that somebody has kind of said to him, like a police on the QT or the OPP or something like that, and said, this very well may be one ethnic group against another ethnic group. But he has to prove that. And I think he's going to have to do a lot of explanations coming forward. He's been under a lot of assault by citizens groups saying, what the hell are you talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it was a bad mistake to say that without having foundational proof.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it was a bad mistake to say that. And school students,
Says Ontario, like he says, Doug Ford's
school
racist comments are a disgrace. That was from the OFL president Laura Walton. I
Yeah.
don't think we're racist because it pretty well included every race, so he's just saying that don't bring your problems from out here. Well, that could have been the Irish, the Protestant and Irish gangs that were shooting at each other here 20 years ago, the IRA and the Ulster Defense League. Those people are white. So I would think that it's more of an ethnic thing rather than a racist thing. I don't think Doug Ford sees it as a racist thing, more as a cultural or ethnic thing that he thinks is happening in Ontario. Now, I don't think he would have said that without having some kind of reason for saying it.
Yeah.
Now he's been pretty careful about most of the things he said about everything.
And this is what is disturbing. I agree it's not a racist comment, but it is a disturbing comment.
And I don't like the idea that the Ontario Federation of Labor just immediately says it's ethnic and they don't themselves analyze the comment and say what is wrong with it. You just automatically say it's racist. And it's obviously that Doug Ford says things like Ontario is the greatest place in the world because of our diversity. You can't be a racist and say stuff like that. I mean, I suppose you could be, but that wasn't his intent. To cloud it with racism is the wrong thing to do, to sort of try to get to the bottom of why he said it and what the reasons were. To me, it's pretty obvious that somebody has told him, whether it's true or not, and I expect it's a police force, probably OPP or something like that, has told him that there are problems in Ontario, hate crimes that are happening between different ethnic groups that have come to Ontario.
But then the thing is that also equally well, so he may well have been briefed by the police on certain things which neither Olivia Chow nor Justin Trudeau knew about, but to have repeated what the words of the police may have said in private is again problematic for Mr. Ford.
I think it's a goon. Basically, after 9/11, there was a temple in Hamilton that was attacked and burned.
Yeah.
It was an Islamophobic reaction, basically. They were going to show the Islamic people what for. The thing is, the temple they attacked was a Sikh temple, and they didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
That's the type of person I think is doing this.
Oh, that is the type of person
a real mental
doing this. Yeah.
And I think also a lot of these people are sadists, hoping they can light a fire, that they'll shoot up a mosque or they'll shoot up a girls' school like this, hoping to see what happens because they're sick in the brain. Even an immigrant that has a problem with, let's say it was a Palestinian who had suffered on the West Bank of Gaza, and then they go by a girls' school and shoot it. Do you think the average Palestinian would ever even think of doing something like that? I mean, what effect would it have? What results would come from it?
Yeah.
I can't see it, or the other way around even. So what you're looking for is some hate-filled, stupid person. That's about it. Good morning, Karen. How you doing? Karen Fraser is in the audience. Lori Parliament says, someone had to say it. Calling someone racist is a new way of deflect the real issues due to letting in unvetted immigrants. That's true. you can't say anything without
Well,
being
again,
called racist. In this case, he was called a racist. Ford was. There's nothing at all racist about what he's saying. He's talking about ethnicity and hate coming in from other places, and he
and
certainly
again,
has had a reason to say that.
and again, actually, you know, the real issue is, you know, Laurie's statement here. The real issue is letting in unvetted immigrants. If you'd have said that 20 years ago, you know what the next statement would have been: you're a racist. And I'm not saying that, Laurie, because I understand where you're coming from. Basically, you're saying what we're saying is that every immigrant needs to have gone through a vetting process. I did.
Well, look, you have. I'll go back to the fact that I think it's a nutter. We
Oh,
have
I agree.
sadistic
We
people in
have
this
sadistic
country.
people.
We
Yeah.
have people who will cause problems between one group and another, just because they think it's funny. You know, to give you an example, I remember this kid what I grew up with. He would go and he would mess up somebody's bike or something like that, and then he'd go to another person and go to the person whose bike got broken or whatever, and say, you know what, such and such across the street did that, and then he'd leave and he'd watch the two guys go out and start fighting one another. So there's people out there with a sick mind that like to do this. We don't know. There are fringe political groups that think that a revolution is coming. Like I'm thinking of Antifa in particular, who think that they might be able to ignite the next revolution for a world-changing revolution of that kind. I'm wondering. I'm pretty sure that Doug Ford's going to have to backpedal on this a bit, but I don't think he's used. I don't think he's a racist, and I just think it was the kind of frustration that, as Laurie said, everybody's beginning to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think we've got a nice little one to end the week. Right. North Korea sends balloons with feces and trash attached to South Korea. Bombing balloon bombs. I read this and I had to say, you what? But then I kind of thought to myself, yeah, I can see that happening. Hey, like Britain sending balloons of such trash over to France and saying, hey, you French, we don't like you, you know.
Well, this is not
Yeah.
uncommon, because this happened during the Second World War, where the Japanese couldn't get to the U.S. or Canada. So what they would do was they set up a balloon and fill it up with munitions, bombs, and that, and set it floating, hoping that it would hit something in the U.S. What most of them did was just kind of land in places, remote places, and unfortunately,
in the ocean,
family got blown up with one of those many years after it was. But this is a reaction, North Korea's action to South Korea. South Korea constantly sends balloons into North Korea, telling them about how wonderful it is in South Korea and how bad they have it there in North Korea. Now, the reason why the North Koreans were upset about this and are complaining about it, South Korea government can't do anything about it because it's private people that are doing it, or ostensibly private institutions that are doing it. So they can't interfere with it. But North Korea says, well, if you can't interfere with it, we'll do something. And so they put garbage and feces in balloons and send them into South Korea.
Well, I got the answer to this. We need to start doing DNA checks on it and then go and arrest people.
Is this your poo?
I say it is your poo. We've got a DNA test that shows that it's exactly you. Now, where we got your DNA from is quite another question. But your cousin Daisy, who lives in South Korea, yeah, she ratted you out.
Yeah, Daisy's a pretty common name in South Korea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I know I'm having we kind of putting a bit of a laughing stint to this, and it's not really that funny. I don't think I would want this.
It's kind of a relief to me that they're putting a lot of effort into sending balloons full of poop and garbage rather than put a lot of effort into their bombs and missiles. That's the thing that I'm worried about. But if they switch their war effort to poop and garbage, I'm as infuriating as that might be to the South Koreans, it's a whole lot better than a missile with a nuke in it.
But how many of these are going to land in the West Pacific and go? How many of them are floating off to Japan right now?
It could be the cause of the war. It could be cause of war. Japan declares war on North Korea because of a poop bomb that came over.
Yeah. It landed in the presidential palace.
Japan is now working on their own version of a nuclear poo bomb.
Poo bar, I say, poo bar.
Okay, just before we leave, I have another profound statement, a question that is of huge import. And this question is, how do you tell when you run out of invisible ink?
Well, that's quite simple. You can't see it anymore.
You couldn't see it to start with.
Ah.
You see?
But you see, you have to either be wearing glasses that allows you to see the invisible ink.
That's all speculation, though. That's all speculation. That's not an answer.
Well, the invisible ink we used to use when I was a kid, you could write with it. You could write with it just fine. It would disappear about 20 seconds after you finished writing.
And here's one from the psychics, basically, as a rather sad statement from a fellow who said, "I almost had a psychic girlfriend, but she left me before we met."
Yeah, well, you see, here's a one. We get these regular calls every once. They come about every 3 months, and then they do it for about 2 weeks. And the label on the call says "Easy Psychics." Well, if you were that easy a psychic and you knew exactly what was going to happen, you knew we weren't going to pick your call up, and we weren't going to say that your service was trash. We weren't going to actually, we weren't going to buy into your service. So why did you bother calling? You should have predicted that.
Well, I don't need the psychic services. I got a phone. It tells me everything. Tells me what to do.
Dave,
hey, look! I have I have a problem, and just to wrap it up, the show. I meant to say this the other day, but a few days ago, like I think in the early part of the week, I was muttering around the house, and I remembered an Amy Winehouse tune. And I was bumming that she had died so young. So I was just kind of saying this to myself. The only thing that was close to me was my phone. And I was just saying, oh, man, Amy Winehouse died like that. And I just sort of muttered to myself, what a great musician and what a great delivery she had. And I'm just sort of saying this to myself. And all of a sudden, I get within a day, I'm getting all kinds of stuff with Amy Winehouse on it. like Amy Winehouse videos are showing up on my phone. Amy Winehouse music where you can get her music and stuff. Now, that's too much of a coincidence, if you ask me.
Well, I
My
don't know.
my phone is listening to me.
I don't know about that. I've got an oddity, but I haven't mentioned Freddie Mercury anywhere, and this is the first time I've mentioned Freddie Mercury anywhere near an electronic device. I've been seeing for the last 2 weeks, I've been seeing a whole heap of posts about Freddie Mercury.
Did you do a search on him or something?
Nope, haven't done anything about, haven't done anything like that. Yeah, and as Laurie says, Google hears everything.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, and I have like I said, I was talking about Amy Winehouse to myself, kind of bumming that she died, and kind of praising her musical abilities, just sort of talking to myself, kind of as I was messing with the dishes. And next thing you know, I'm getting all this Amy Winehouse stuff. Now, I've never had a flush of Amy Winehouse stuff come. I expect these things when I go look for a pair of boots or shoes or something online, and then suddenly I start getting a lot of advertisements for it. So obviously, somebody's listening that way. And Lori says my phone is my microphone. Well, I'm gonna have to be a lot more careful what I say around my phone.
Yeah.
And she says Google hears everything. Yeah, I'm sure, but I thought, like I was shocked by that.
Facebook hears everything.
Yes, and
the point about this is my car actually is on the listen also for verbal commands at it, and was talking the other day in the car. Two human beings talking in the car, and and suddenly the phone, the dashboard says, and comes up and answers what somebody had said.
yeah.
No, we didn't ask you to get involved in this. Go away.
That just kind of gave me the creeps. I have always expected that somebody's if anyone could possibly do it, they'll and I don't think it's one person. I think it's companies or whatever. Will listen in on everything possible and then pick up on keywords like Amy Winehouse, and all of a sudden I get all kinds of Amy Winehouse stuff. That sort of thing. So I think now that I would have expected it. Of course, when you do a research on Google or on your phone or anything like that, you may be looking for a washing machine or something, and you're going to get a ton of stuff for a washing machine.
In fact, actually, yes, exactly that. If you do a search, let's say on new tires, because your car's, you're thinking, well, I've got a few thousand kilometers on the tires I've got now. What's my options about buying a new set of tires? And you're just thinking about it. You're not actually gonna go out and buy. And hey, everything that comes up then is from Michelin or from Goodyear or from every tire manufacturer you've never heard of, right? Because they're all over your Facebook, they're all over your the news article you're reading off of CBC, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, it sort of gives you a curious. Big Brother really is looking, watching, but it's Big Brother advertisement.
But then again,
this I guess is the source of so much anxiety with TikTok. Now, TikTok has shown itself to be quite of service, particularly in places like Ukraine or Gaza, where people can quickly upload videos of what's going on, and it can't. And the censors they can't get at it. So it's come up, but at the same time, the anxiety is the Chinese government is using all the information it's getting from TikTok users and putting it through their algorithms to see how they can use it. Lori Parliament says Alexis devices have been used to solve murders and other crimes. She not only hears everything, she records everything. Oh boy.
Yep. So don't kill your wife in front of the TV, Dave.
Well, I'm afraid a recording of myself singing in the shower could be used as a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, well, I've got no answer to that one. Maybe that becomes the next Canadian great Canadian weapon. Hey, Justin, it's time that you take up the Dave singing bomb.
Here's another profound statement I have for everyone. The early bird may get the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Well, anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Lori, Mike, and all the others who are tuning in, and we appreciate your comments, particularly. And really enjoyed myself last night at Lori's meeting. That gave me confidence in city politics when you have a council like that. And in any case, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace. Let's stop this damned war. The Ukrainian one's driving me nuts, and the Gaza one is making me ill, especially when you have politicians like Nikki Haley, who thinks it's a good thing to put their name and signature on a artillery piece and say that says finish it. Yeah. Nikki, do you really want that? You know what that artillery shell is? It's a messenger of death and destruction.
I tell you,
who do you want to kill with that, Haley?
I'll tell you what she should do. She can sign it and she can stand in front of the cannon. How about that?
I think she needs she's sick. She's sick.
Yep. All right.
Unfortunately. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu.